So we are here to talk about integrating the bit repositories.org bit preservation framework into the Danish NetArchive suite. And we will take it from different angles. That's why we are so many people here. And bit repository.org is open source. So if you're interested, please tell us. First, you should be aware that this is bits we're talking about. There's no logic involved with it, only bits. It doesn't know what's storing besides of that. And definition of bit preservation is that they can be accessed as intact bits in a time horizon of 100 years. That means that we need to preserve them in a way where we minimize the loss of bits. So it's very much to do with risk management. And we know that the technology changes are running very fast, so we have to preserve it independent of technology. So there are three main principles in bit preservation. You need to have a number of copies, and you need to check them frequently. It's no backups, they're all equally worthy. And you can add checksums if you need to vote, if there are inconsistencies. And then you need as much independence as possible, so no one event cannot harm all your copies. Again, risk management. Okay, so this is a general view of a bit repository. And again, please note, it's organization and technique. Technique cannot solve things for you. You need to have an organization around that. So here is what we have in the NetArchive suite, or in Denmark, in NetArchive in Denmark. We had 2 full copies, and we had 1 checksum. The challenges here was the full copies were 2 online copies, which is very expensive for a big web archive, and the checksum was with 1 of the copies. Not very good. So we found out very quickly that we needed an extra backup copy, but that was not part of the bit preservation, which was not good. We also had home-built mass processing, which was very much out of date. So we wanted to shift to bitrepository.org, which is the framework that we have used for all our other materials in the library. And that started in 2012. And there's a long history, but the aim, both then and now, is to provide a secure large-scale bit preservation and also fulfill requirements for both libraries and archives. Because archives, there's also something about the security. So, we have these things. We now need to look at the independence, technically, organizationally, and geographically. So this bitrepository.org framework, that is a technical solution, and it can support an organizational implementation. But let's look at the technique. It is a layer where you have communications between the copies, and then there are different services on top of it. It has a number of copies and arbitrary. And it has an integrity service. It has independence, where the independence is that each of the components here, they don't know anything about the other components. They just have to respond to the protocol. The key thing here is the communication, actually. So the communication is, of course, asynchronously, otherwise we get things not to work, and the communication is based this common message protocol, and that's what they need to respect in order to be a component in this system. So if we look at that, what you have here is communication, is data transmission, and a message broker down to where the copies are. If we take an example, it's just an XML message for access. You can send a get file request. And that's just specifying different data. And if we look what happened, it sends this via the message broker to the pillars that has each their copy. They can respond, I have it, you can get it from me. And then it can ask, okay, I want it from you. Just pick one of them. And then there's continuously progress report. And in the end, it can say, now you can tag it, and it takes it. So it's that simple. And nobody needs to know anything about each other to do this. Okay, so that was the technical part. And here you can see it's independent component, and that means that it can be allowed as long as it respects the protocol. You can shift those with new components, with new technology over time. It's also scalable because it allows parallelism, and it has security implemented by certificates in the messages, and also security in the data transmission. Okay. So let's look at the Danish implementation. This is what you saw before. That was the old one. And we want to put it down to the bit repository. Luckily, it was very easy for this backup because it was already part of our bit repository. So that was just switching it on. It was also very easy with the checksums. There was only one checksum. We could just make a lot of different checksums with what we already had. But for the two old platforms, we had to make a new one to have a proper mass processing. So we put one copy down on this new one and put the other one to a cheaper tape copy that we already had. Okay, so this is how it looks now. We have a bit of a problem because two of the copies in the same rooms, they're all in the same organization, they all use this programming language, operating system, same country, not good. So at the moment we are building a new pillar for a copy with new characteristics. And when we replace the other one, we actually eliminate most of the risks. The only one we have left is the same country. And that's the next step. After that, that's moving one of the copies abroad. Then we should be totally safe. And I will hand it over to Colin to talk about it.
So that's just a little bit about how we actually implemented these things in NetArchive Suite. Oh, what did I do? Right, so NetArchive Suite, for those who don't know, is it's a distributed web archiving platform. It's for large-scale web archiving. And when I say large-scale, it's used for the National Web Archiving Initiative here at BNF, and in Sweden, Austria, Spain, and in Denmark, where we initially developed the software. And NetArchive Suite we developed originally about 20 years ago, nearly now. And when we did it, we developed our own archive component, right, for bit preservation, exactly as Elle has been describing. But since then, the Bit Repository initiative came along, and it's always been our ambition to migrate NetArchive Suite to use the Bit Repository, because first we'd get the synergy of using the same architecture for all our different collections that we have in Denmark, and also the Bit Repository is a little bit more well thought through, so it's more flexible. It allows us, for example, it fully supports tape copies and not just online copies. Well, that's fair enough. That all sounds very easy when you say it. We just use a different thing. Okay, this is a way overcomplicated diagram. There's absolutely no time to describe everything that's going on here. But if I just focus in on the middle line there, that's the repository interface that we have in the original NetArchive Suite, and that has a storage layer. Okay, great. So we store stuff, but it also has mass processing, batch processing, as Elle mentioned briefly, and it also has a WAC record level access API method in it. So if we're going to get rid of this old archive layer, we have to get rid of all of that, and then we can get rid of the thing at the top, which is the old archive storage and some other components that are used for management, and offload those and modularize all our NetArchive Suite. So how did we do that? Well, this is the target, which is just as complicated, by the way, except that everything above the middle line here is Bit Repository software, right? So it offloads all our maintenance load on NetArchive Suite. It allows us to concentrate on stuff down here, which is like harvesting and stuff that has to do with web archiving, which is the kind of thing we're really interested in. Okay, so let's see. The first thing we had to do is we had to move the storage layer. Well, that's easy, right? Because all we have to do is tell our harvesters, upload to this archive instead of uploading to this kind of thing. So it's just just removing some code and changing a method call to something else. So that was easy, but it actually makes a huge difference because now we have it offloads a lot of functionality and the actual software load and the message passing in a NetArchive suite to somewhere else. So it actually made the system itself much more stable potentially, but in order to really get the benefits of this, we had to get rid of the other things as well. So the next thing we had to think about was the access level that we had. This thing that fetched things out by WARC records. Bit repository is completely neutral. It doesn't understand WARC files. You can't ask it to give me a WARC record from this WARC file at this offset. Bit repository doesn't know about WARC files. So we had to design a so we had to design this thing here, right? We had to design a thing to a WARC record service. Well, you can probably guess what that looks like. I think I heard somebody else mention it at least once this week. It's just a REST API that says, give me this WARC record at this offset from this WARC file. We implemented it in a web server in Apache. It's about this much code. That's not a problem. That was great. The next thing though is processing. Okay, what's this? Batch processing, mass processing. Things like checksum calculations, things like indexing. We thought, well, how do we deal with this in the new architecture? Oh, I know what we'll do. We have a lot of expertise in-house in Hadoop. We'll just put up a little Hadoop cluster and we'll mount the WARC files on that and we'll rewrite our things as MapReduce jobs. It'll be no problem. If I had only known, right? Because even with the expertise, it turns out you don't just whip up a Hadoop cluster. It turns out that even things like defining the network architecture for it, it's quite a big job. Rewriting all our code, wasn't so much code, but even so, rewriting it all to MapReduce from what it was. There are a lot of traps you can fall into writing MapReduce jobs. I fell into every single one of them, I can promise you. But I clambered out of them all, and eventually we got it working. And I think Tool will confirm that as far as things like deduplication indexing goes, we ended up with a system that was at least as functional and stable and as quick as what we had before, and we got rid of that entire layer of our architecture. Now we can concentrate on things like harvesting. What did we learn from this? Well, I think if I had to just quickly sum up with this mass processing thing, the architecture we ended up with was much more tightly coupled than we really wanted between the NetArchive suite stuff and the processing stuff. We really wanted to modularize it and have an external processing service we could just talk to with a lightweight API. That's not what we ended with. We ended up with the thing being very tightly coupled. So if I had to do it again, maybe one day I'll get time to do it again, I think I would do it slightly differently. And there's one thing I haven't told you about, right, which is how we migrated the entire archive, the existing archive, all the files from the old system to the new system, whilst we were continuing to harvest without interruption. That's because I've repressed all my memories of exactly what we did to make that work. But if you buy me a beer, maybe I can tell you someday. Right, and now I'll turn over to these guys. I hope I haven't taken all your time.
No, it's fine. So we're going to talk a little bit about what El mentioned with moving some of the bits to another country, and then we're going to talk about something else we are currently working on. Yeah, so so as you can tell, we want to move one of these pillars with the bits abroad, and there's all rules for GDPR and stuff. So all the bits needs to be encrypted, and we started planning how to do this, and we started programming a little bit on it, but we had to put the whole project to sleep for a while. But the idea is simply just that you can tell here that we have all these pillars. And then we just put one layer on top of one of the pillars that will encrypt and decrypt the data when it comes in and out. And the reason we had to put this project, put it down, it's that we simply had something else that's way more important. And currently we're implementing the new software to give data to all of Denmark. And I think Rasmus is going to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things we're currently working on is making, I guess, a bit repository more broad in a sense, in that we are trying to support having it act as an S3 server, so you can just talk S3, the S3 protocol, and then the bit, not the bit repository in itself, but this extension that we're making, an adapter, it will understand it and just throw stuff into the bit repository. So yeah, as mentioned, we currently use it in collaboration with the Preservica. So we have it set up as like an S3 compatible, I think it's called. So anytime we ingest something into Preservica, it sends out some S3 requests, and this adapter understands it and sends it further on onto the bit repository. So yeah, it's just a fairly simple solution, a simple Spring Boot application. Yeah, and you can see the other technologies we use there. Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, hopefully sometime it can support browser tricks too, but for now the implementation is very Preservica specific, because they have some stuff we need to.
And of course, we don't support the whole S3 protocol, because there's a lot. Amazon has a lot of great documentation on it, but there's simply too much to do. So we only do like retrieval and store, put commands and stuff like this.
Also, because we're not interested in deleting anything in the underlying bit repository, so stuff like that is not supported.
Yeah, I think that's it, right?